In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can edit your photos to look more like a painting. You've probably seen a lot of those photos where you're not really sure whether it's actually a photo or it's a painting because it just looks so painterly. It almost looks too good to be a photo. It just looks too perfect. Over a period of time, my photography style has become more painterly, and I have started to implement a lot of the techniques that you can use to achieve that painterly look. So in this video, I thought that I would share 4 steps that I think are the most important and the most effective to achieve that painterly look. Let's first just make a quick overview of what the 4 techniques are, because I just think that makes the whole process of learning this a lot easier, and it just makes it a little bit more understandable. I don't know, let's just go through them. First technique, or the first step, is to make everything just look more flawless, because you know, when you see a painting, you don't really see spots and skin pores and stuff like that, you just don't. So the first step is just to make it flawless like a painting. Step number 2 is to add a lot of highlights and a lot of shadows. Step number 3 then is to crush the highlights and the shadows. The 4th and final step is to add texture. The first thing that really matters when it comes to making your photo look more painterly is to make it look more flawless, because a painting just is more flawless. It doesn't have those random imperfections that a photo do. And the first thing that we want to do is to use the liquify tool. So first of all, we just want to duplicate the layer that we have right here. And we're doing that by pressing Command J, like that. And then we're heading over to Filter and liquify. The reason that we're going over here is just that we want the hair to look more rounded and just more flawless. So we're just going to pull just slightly in all of the hair right here, just to make it look a little bit more flawless. Like this. And we can pull these hair strands in right here. Just a tiny bit, just making them a little less flyaway-ish, like that. And then press OK. So you can see the before and the after. Just makes it look a little bit more perfect and rounded and nice. Now the next thing that we are going to do is to do some frequency separation, and the reason that we're going to do that is because we want to remove some spots in the face. And this could be spots like this, and the highlight right here, we also don't want that to be that clear, and the under eye dark circles right here, we want to remove those, and just to make it a little bit more even. So the way that you're going to do this is that you're once again going to duplicate this layer so that we have 2 similar layers right here, and we're going to name the bottom layer low and the top layer high. Now we can turn off the top layer and click the bottom layer called low. Then we're heading over to filters, blur, and Gaussian blur. And now you want to make sure that you blur out all the texture in the skin. So if we're going down here, you can still, let's choose the skin. You can still see a little bit of the texture right here, but if we pull it up a little bit, and now the texture is actually gone, maybe a little bit more actually. 7.4, that is pretty good. Now you can see all the, you can still see the face and the features, but the texture and the pores and all that stuff is gone. And then we're going to click OK. Then we're choosing the high frequency layer, turning that on, and we're heading over to image, apply image. And now you just have to copy these settings that I'm setting, and I can't really explain to you why that is. It's just the way that it is. So here on layer, you're going to choose a low layer. So that's this layer that we have down here. Oh, not background, low, yeah. And the channel has to be RGB, and blending mode, you want to choose subtract. And opacity at 100, and scale to 2, and offset to 128. Don't ask me why we have to write down these numbers, it's just the way it is. And now you can see that we are actually applying everything that this layer down here doesn't have, we now have on this top layer, if that makes sense. So all the texture and the lines and stuff like that, you can see on the top layer. And then we're going to click OK. Now we don't want it to look like this. So what we're going to do is to head over to blending modes and choose linear light, like that. And then we're back to normal. So now we can go ahead and click this low layer, and let's just zoom in a little bit on the face. And we can choose the lasso tool over here, like that. And then we're just going to draw out a circle like this. Then we're heading over to filter, blur, and Gaussian blur. And now we can pull it up, and the more we pull it up, the more blurred out this area will be. So we can see if we just drag it way too high up, it will just look very bad, but if we find a sweet spot in between, it will actually make it look a lot better, like that. And then we're just gonna do that to all the areas where we have some spots. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and do this to the whole face. Yeah, so now we have removed all the uneven spots that we didn't want, as you can see. Now if we just put it into a group, we can quickly see the before and the after. That is of course with the hair as well. That already made a huge difference. Now we can just duplicate the layer once again by pressing Command J, and we're going to merge it like that. And then we're going to go in and remove all the spots that we don't want, because a Painterly photo doesn't have all of these imperfections in the skin. So the way that I do that, and the way that I really like to do that, is to use this tool right here. What is it called? I don't even know. The patch tool. And the way that you're going to use that is you just click it, and then you're drawing a circle around the imperfections right here. And then you can just drag this out to somewhere where the skin is more even, like that, and then it's gone. So before and after. And the more that you do this, the faster you will get and the easier it will be. It really is very easy to do. It just takes some time, but this is really where your photo will separate from the other photos, and this is really what will make your photo stand out and what will make your photo look painterly, because if you don't take the time and do this, it just won't look as good. That's just the way it is. It makes sense that the more time and the more effort you put into it, the better your photo will look in the end. So it's just a matter of having patience and just keep doing it. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and do this to the whole face, and then I'll come back. The before and the after. It's a little bit hard to see when we're zoomed all the way out, but just zooming in, it especially made a huge difference here in the forehead. So before and after just made the overall thing just look a lot more flawless. All right, I do have a final technique for making the skin look more flawless, and I'm going to show you that right now. And the way that you're doing that is that you're going down here to create a blank layer like this. Then you're going to choose the eyedropper tool, and then you're going to choose a color. So if you hold down the key while you drag it around, you can see the color that you're going to choose. So you're just going to choose a skin color. I think this one is pretty good. Then you're going to choose the brush tool right here. Have it a little bit bigger maybe. Like that, and make sure that it's set to 0% hardness, so that it is as soft as it can be. And then you want to set your opacity to maybe 17%. That is pretty good, I think. And now you can go ahead and draw over, especially stuff like this, where you can see we have actually a lot of texture because the light is hitting, and that doesn't look very good. So we can just paint slightly over that. And then we're actually just painting with skin color, so it just softens out everything and it just adds the color that we have chosen, and it just makes the overall thing look a little bit better. Now be careful with using this, because if you use it too much, it just will look very unrealistic, and we also don't want that. So yeah, be careful, but it can be helpful too, especially to remove stuff like this. So you can see here the before and the after. It just makes it look a little bit more even. The next step to making your photo look more flawless is to add some highlights and add shadows, because it just creates a lot more depth and it just makes the photo look more dimensional and more like a painting. It just makes such a huge difference. It's just so important. So the first thing that we're going to do is to create all the highlights in the photo. And the way that we're going to do that is to head down here to the adjustment layers, click that, and then we're going to create a curves layer like this. And then we're just going to drag this line a little bit up, and as you can see, it makes the overall image a lot brighter. And I think somewhere around here is pretty good, like that. And then you're going to click Command I, and that just removes the whole effect from the whole image, because we have created a black curves, a black layer mask. And now we once again want to go over here and choose the brush and make sure that the color down here is set to white. And then we're going to take the opacity back to 100, and then let's just zoom a little bit in, like this. And once again, choose the brush, and maybe just gonna make it a little bit bigger, something like that. And then we're going to paint in highlights where the highlights would naturally be. So that is underneath the eyes right here. I usually just paint it in a triangle, because I think that looks very good. And under the other eye as well. And it's on the bridge of the nose. Down here, be very careful with this, because it can look bad if you overdo it. And it's here in the middle of the forehead. We're just gonna make the brush a little bit bigger for that, like this. It's also on the chin, down here. And a little bit on the lips as well, and on the cupid's bow. I actually love doing it on the cupid's bow. It just makes it look so much better. I love that. And on the brow bone as well, right here. If you've ever done makeup before, if you're a girl, maybe you know this. It is where you would apply the highlights in your makeup. Or if that doesn't make any sense, it's pretty much just where you can see already that the overall image is brighter than the rest of the image. So you can see the under eye here is a lot brighter compared to the side of the image, so it would look weird to highlight that. As you can see right there, it just doesn't really make sense. So I think you can just see it everywhere where it naturally fits and where we naturally have a highlight. So it's also down here. It's pretty much everything down here that actually is highlighted. So just gonna do that pretty quickly. And as you can see here, the before and the after, it already made a huge difference. And now we're going to go in and create the opposite layer. So that is the blacks layer or the shadows layer. And we're just maybe going to go a little bit down here and just drag it down. And you can see most of the image becomes a lot darker. Now we're once again going to hit Command I, because it just makes the layer black, and we can paint in where we actually want it to be. So if we choose the brush tool, and let's just make it a little bit smaller, we can go in and paint here under the cheekbones. That is always where we want to look a little bit more skinny, so that's a good place to start, and we have that over on the side as well, and around the forehead to make it look a little bit smaller. Yay! I did a little bit too much over here, so I can just go down here and switch to black, and then maybe set the opacity to 43%, and then I can just erase what I thought I did too much. And I can just switch back to white and switch the opacity back to 100%, and then I can just continue. We also want to contour the nose a little bit, just a tiny bit. See, that is already too much, but then we can just go in afterwards and do some of it like that. Opacity, and make it a little bit bigger. Then we can just erase some of it, so you can see the before and the after. Just zoom out and see it again. Before and the after. So I also think it's a little bit too much over here now looking at it. So we're making the brush bigger and just erasing some of it as well. And now we actually want to go into the details. So we want to highlight the eyes, for example. So we're just going to go down here to the highlights layer once again. And we're choosing the brush and we're just making it very small. I think that is pretty good, and also a little bit more hard. And then we can draw in tiny strokes. I know it seems like you can't really see any difference, but I promise you that when I show you the before and the after, it just makes a huge difference, and it just makes it look so much better. And it's really, if you take the time to do these small things, that is really where the big change happens, and where your photo will go from just a photo to a piece of art, and it will look like a painting. Because painters, they spend time on the eyes and painting in the eye. So you have to do that too. I actually also like to go in here in the waterline, I think that is what it's called, because it also just makes the eyes look a little bit bigger if we make that brighter. And in here, it just looks so good. And now we're going to do the same with the eyes, just choosing the black layer right here. Let's zoom in and choosing the brush. And then we're just going to make the pupil darker, and also making it darker around here in the edges of the iris. Another thing we want to do is here on the lash line. We also want to make that darker a little bit, because it also just helps to define the eyes a lot more. And down here on the bottom lash line as well. It also just makes the eyes look a lot bigger, especially if we also put some more shadow underneath here. That will make the eyes look bigger. So the before and the after. It looks so good. So that was round 1, and now it's time for round 2. So we're just going to do the exact same thing once again, but we're going to go a lot more into the details and stuff like that. So this was sort of like the overall highlights and shadows, and now we're going to go into the iris again, and we're also going to highlight and shadow the hair and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and create a adjustment layer, curve layer right there, and just make it brighter like that. And then hit Command I to make it black. And then let's just start from the top with the hair. So we're going to choose the brush tool, and we actually want it to look like hair strands. So we're going to make the brush a lot smaller, like that. And we're actually just going to paint in like this. So you can see it almost looks like hair strands. And you can't really see too much of a difference down here because it's already bright. So I especially want to have the effect up here where it's a little bit darker. But I'm also dragging it down to kind of blend it in, if that makes sense. So just painting a lot. And that is pretty good, I think. So before and the after, you can see it really just makes the hair pop a lot more. Then we're going to do a little bit on the forehead as well. So we're making the brush bigger, and making it completely soft again, because we don't want any harsh lines. And then we're just gonna make it brighter just right here in the middle and down the bridge of the nose like that, and on the tip of the nose. So you can see the before and the after. It's just where we really want that highlight to pop. And then under the eyes as well, we're just making the brush even smaller like that. And then in the other curved layer down here, we actually highlighted this whole area, but now we're just going to go in here in the most important area, just under the eyes. We're not going to go down here because we already did that. We're just doing it in the most important areas. don't think we're going to add any highlights to the chest area right here because it already is very bright and we don't want it to stand out too much. So that is actually it for that. And now we're just also going to highlight this thingy right here that I don't know what it's called. All right, now we're going to create another shadows curves layer like that, and Command I to make it black. And then we're just going to do the exact same thing where we're going to go into the details and the most important parts and the hair and stuff like that. So I'm just gonna do that off camera and then we're going to come back. Alright, that was it for the highlights and the shadows for now. So we're just going to put it into a group and then the before and the after. So you can really see that it just makes the whole image look a lot more dimensional and cool and painterly, and it just makes everything look a lot more awesome. Something just came to my mind as I was doing this, because I actually do have another technique that I use sometimes for brows and for the hair, and also just to make it look more painterly, and it actually is to paint. So I'm just going to show you that as a kind of like a bonus tip or something like that. So the way that you're going to do that is to just create a blank layer like this, and then you want to choose the eyedropper tool and choose a color from the hair strands. So this would be the right color, I think. And then choose the brush tool and make sure that it's set to very low. I think something like this. And then pull up the hardness. And now we actually just want to draw in. Whoa. All right, so that was way too big. So maybe something like that. Yeah, and then we're actually just going to draw in hair strands. So you can see here it actually just looks like hair that I'm drawing on. Something to keep in mind is that if you're using a mouse, this will be very hard to do. I'm not even sure if I would be able to do this with a mouse, because I am using a tablet to edit. Especially for drawing like this, I think this would be impossible to do with a mouse. But as you can see, this just makes it a lot easier to fill in the brows, and it just, yeah, makes the brow look more flawless and more nice. So you can see here the before and the after. It's these tiny details that just makes the photo look so much better. So now I'm just gonna finish up here and I'm gonna add some colors, and then we're moving on to the third and the fourth final steps. This is actually a very simple step and it doesn't take a lot of time to implement. So what you want to do is to head down here to the adjustment layers and create a curves layer like we've done a couple of times now. And the only thing you want to do is to crush the whites and to crush the blacks of the image. So we're taking this point up here, which is the whites, and we're just dragging it down slightly. So we don't have any very harsh highlights. So everything just becomes a little bit more flat. And we're just doing the same to the shadows, just dragging it up slightly. It also just makes it look a little bit more faded, like a painting. So that's really it. So you can see the before and the after. It just makes it look more flat and more faded. Alright, the final step, and definitely a pretty cool step if you want your photo to look a lot more like a painting, and that is to add texture. Now, how do you find texture? What you can do is that you can literally just go around your house and take pictures of stuff, and you can use that as texture. It really doesn't matter what it is that you're capturing a photo of or what the texture is. It's just a matter of how you like the texture on your image to look like. And then the important thing is just that before you apply it to your image is that you make it black and white so that the colors won't affect your image. But it's like it's just a texture. Brooke Shaden, who is an amazing photographer and creative and artist and all that stuff, also have a lot of textures that you can download for free. And that is exactly what I have done, because I don't use textures too often. I only use it if I want my photos to look very painterly. So this is some of her textures, and that is just what I'm going to use now. So you can see here I have lots of different to choose from. I think this would fit the image pretty well maybe. Then I'm just gonna drag it into the image like this and rotating it a little bit and just adjusting it to fit. And then I'm just going through these blending modes to see which one I like more. So this actually looks pretty cool. Let's just take a look at the other ones too, see if any. Okay, I think we're going to go with this overlay because that just makes it look very cool. And then we're setting the opacity a little bit lower because it is very extreme right now. So we're just lowering it quite a lot. Maybe like that. And then if you like, you can go ahead and erase the texture and the effect on the actual face and then apply another texture maybe. Maybe we can do that just to see how that looks. So I'm just making a layer mask and taking a brush and making sure that it's big enough and making it soft and just erasing it very slightly, very softly like that, so it looks very cool in the background I think. And then we can go ahead and find another texture, maybe this one, and choosing a blending mode. I think I really like this soft light like that. And then we can go in and lowering the opacity quite a lot. So you can see here the before and the after with the textures on top. It just really makes it look a lot more painterly. And that is really it for this image. Here you can see the original image and the final image. I really hope you found these tips helpful and that you're going to use it and that you're going to go out and create your own art. If you are, please tag me in it because I would love to see it. You can find me right here over on Instagram. And if you like the video, please give it a like because it would just make me very happy. Subscribe if you haven't already and hit the little bell to be notified every time I post a new video because I post a new video every single week. And until next time, bye.